Thank you for joining us. My name is Racheal Wangui, and I'm the Study Abroad Advisor here at CSU Dominguez Hills. And today is an exciting day. We are excited to talk about one of our very own student who is currently studying abroad in South Korea. So today's program title is Student Experience. This is Student Study Abroad Experience. And we'll be focusing on a student who is going to be talking about her study abroad experience while studying in South Korea. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce her. Her name is Katey Alvarez. Her major is communications, and she also has a minor in marketing. And she is currently studying abroad with CSU International Programs. This is the one and only CSU statewide study abroad program. And she left sometime in September, if I'm correct, or was it in August? She will clarify that. She'll clarify that. And she's been there all this month, and she's going to share extensively how her study abroad experience has been. And we are hoping that the program, she'll complete the program by the end of spring 2022, if nothing happens with the current conditions of COVID-19. But so far, so good. And so just wanted to mention again, she's in South Korea, and she's currently studying in Yonsei University. So I'm going to have Katey talk a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. As she said, I am currently abroad in Korea, and I've been here since August, and I won't be leaving until sometime July, which is a full academic year. You can do a semester. That is an option depending on your program, but I decided to do the full year. And it's currently 9 a.m., so we are a different change in time, and it is also Thursday.
It sounds great. So I'm going to thank you so much, Katey. I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint she had created. And then after that, we are going to go through some questions where we can get more detailed information from Katey. So let's see what's going on.
Hi, everyone. This is my PowerPoint, My Life in South Korea. As I said before, I'm studying abroad during a pandemic. I'm studying at Yonsei University from August to July of next year. Now let's talk about arriving in South Korea. I don't think many people realize how long the plane ride actually is. And then obviously depending on the route you choose, it could be 10 hours or 12 hours, but I did a 12-hour one because it was slightly cheaper. So I did a pit stop in Canada, which was fun. It was fun saying I've been to Canada when it was only the airport. But the paperwork to come to South Korea during COVID was a lot. I had to do quarantine agreements, had to do on the airplane, I had to fill out information where I was going to quarantine, where I've been and stuff like that. And then the 2-week quarantine. So the government does check up on you. So they phone calls, they actually come and knock on your door. They're like, are you in here? Okay. And then they leave. And then I think the good thing about Korea is that they drop off a lot of things. So they dropped off hand sanitizers, masks, thermometers, everything you needed during your 2-week quarantine. And I remember getting here, I think it was 9 in the morning. So I had slept all night, did everything I needed to. And I was like, okay, like the time change won't be bad. And then I realized that it really does. So I think at like 3 or 4 p.m., I was like dozing off. I was like sleepy. I was like, oh no, the jet lag is really going to hit me. But I think the quarantine really does help because you can't do anything else but be in your area. So after like 2 or 3 days, I was like getting into a better routine, and then I adjusted pretty quickly. And I'm not living on the dorms. So after quarantine, I moved into my apartment, and I think that was like a different experience because, you know, I'm not immediately meeting other students. I'm like getting into my own routine and deciding what you want to do for the day. And as stated before, I've been here since August 9th, and my leaving date is sometime July. And here I have pictures of, I came as a group with CSUIP. So we organized coming together. So it wasn't, you weren't traveling by yourself. So there's a couple, there was more than us, but this is the picture I took of our tickets. Now let's talk about the food and culture. There's so much food everywhere. Little restaurants, big restaurants. There's something called cafe culture. The cafes here are set up specifically for pictures, to like sit with your friends and talk. There is study cafes as well, but it's all around cafes everywhere. And if they can add up, they can get expensive, but you just have to like decide what you're gonna do. And I usually study at home, but when I feel like I need to get out, I usually just go to a cafe, order myself a little coffee and do my work there. And there is no limit. They have free Wi-Fi and you kind of just vibe with everyone else. And a lot of the food here is meat and chicken, but don't get me wrong, if you are vegetarian or if you are vegan, there is a tofu, there is lots of vegetables, like there's a various amount of food. And there's so many sweets here in Korea. The picture here, it's like a cake and donuts. And fun fact, the garlic bread is actually sweet in Korea. Like there's no like savory taste to it. It's just sweet. And then also like it's like the complete opposite. A lot of the food is spicy, but you kind of just go with it. And then for the culture wise, there's when I got here, there was something called Chuseok, which is like the Korean Thanksgiving. And a lot of the international students didn't really know what to do. But luckily, Yonsei and other programs there encouraged you to do something with your friends there or do something with them. I know my professor invited us to her house during Chuseok and she cooked for us. She like taught us about the culture, and there's like little stuff like that that's like super sweet. And your friends, they really help you out a lot. So not too long ago, there was something called Pepero Day, which is where you buy your friend like chocolates or just to celebrate the day. And I made a really good friend here in Korea. And she actually sent me a whole box of them. I wanted to show you guys like here in Korea, like no matter how long you've been friends or their like love language is like gifting food. Traveling while abroad. When you decide your program, they do talk about traveling while abroad, and you have to remember you are here for school. You do have to study. You do have to be a good student, but allow yourself to explore. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to spend. You don't have to think of like a Disneyland trip. It's more of like getting out of your comfort zone and getting out of your area so that you actually see the beautiful places that Korea has to offer. And if you're here for a month, if you're here for a semester, explore when you get here and explore when you leave, because there are different times during that. When I got here, it was hot. It was really hot, but I still went out and I saw different things. And now that it's getting colder, different areas are opening up and they're just so beautiful. You just really have to get out there and travel. Here I am in Busan. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Train to Busan. It's that zombie movie. It has nothing to do with zombies in Busan, don't worry. And the Seoul Tower, it's a lot of walking. I think here in Korea, people don't mention how much you actually walk, but it can actually be a good thing when you're eating a lot of sweets. So you're walking from cafe to cafe or walking from different areas. But walking, you get to see a lot of, there's so many people walking, and it's so normal for people to ride bikes, to ride anything, because it's like physically active. And then making friends and getting involved. I know moving abroad can be really scary, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I make friends? The language barrier, I'm new, I'm shy. And then honestly, depending on where you decide to live, things can be easier or harder. I know my friends on campus, it was a little bit easier for them to join clubs. But don't get me wrong, I joined the same clubs. It's all about putting effort and deciding what you want to do. Because even some people on campus don't join clubs. It's all about the impact you want to make on yourself. So I joined something called the mentor program, which is where you're partnered with a Korean student that attends Yonsei, and they set up meetings, they set up like cafe dates, they set up, or we're playing board games, or we're gonna do this traditional thing, we're gonna do this. And you can decide, oh, I want to go to this, oh, I don't. And it's all about like the experience you want to have in Korea. And then one thing you have to remember is language doesn't have to be a barrier. They might not know the best English, or you might not know the best Korean, but it's all about the experiences you guys want to have. There's always translations, there's always communicating with hands, pointing, and that's something I've managed to do. And I think it's so funny because both of us barely speak a little bit of each other's language, but we go out, we go to the movies, and I've just made really good friends, even though there is a language barrier. But we just have fun, and I think I've learned a lot from them. They've taught me like little things here and there that it just sticks with me, and I can't wait to like bring that back home. Now let's make it happen. These are the scholarships I applied to. There's obviously a lot more that I did apply to, but I couldn't fit them on here. But these are the main ones I want to point out because they're very accessible to everyone. So I applied to the Freeman Asia. If you're deciding to study abroad anywhere in Asia, this is the perfect one because it's specifically only for students studying abroad in Asia. The Benjamin Scholarship is for everyone kind of studying abroad. And then the Fund for Education as well is also for everyone studying abroad. All of these are mainly for studying abroad. The only one that I wanted to point out is that CSUDH also has scholarships. A lot of people fail to realize that there are people who are there to support you and want to send you abroad. You just have to take that step forward. Because I know for the DH one, there wasn't a lot of people applying. And I sent it to my friends and I sent it to people and they just did it. Not because they didn't need it, but because of laziness or because they thought it was too hard. But it's all about, do you want to make your dreams happen? Do you want to take that step forward? Do you want to study abroad? If you do, you really need to apply for scholarships because there's so much money out there that is not being taken because students are like, I won't win, or there's people so much better than me. And at first that was my thought, but I was like, either I get it or I don't. And that's the two possibilities. And you just kind of have to do it and see what happens. My biggest encouragement to everyone is apply to all the ones you can, because one of them has to stick. One of them has to come back. And I actually received more than one. And I think it's because I just kept applying. And Racheal really helped me out. Whenever she would see one, she would send it to me. And I think that's what really encouraged me because it seemed like she also was encouraging me. So here I am encouraging you guys to please, please, please apply to scholarships. It makes life so much easier. I remember that was one of the things that I was scared about. How am I going to pay for me studying abroad? And scholarships helped me out. To this day, I'm so, so grateful that I'm able to have this opportunity and talk about it with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Could you please share with us how much you received in total for the scholarship?
I believe I received about 16,000. And that's
wonderful.
Just my scholarships. And then depending on your financial aid, scholarships and financial aid are two completely different things. So they don't intertwine. Like I still received my financial aid and I still received my scholarships. I just had to let my scholarships know, like I received this other scholarship or I did this. And that's how I'm able to be here and enjoy my time abroad.
Thank you. And I think I'll stop sharing. So that's Katey with her sharing her experience. And I believe that's, it's incredible to hear a student speaking from that experience, being there, being immersed in the country while breathing the air while she's still studying abroad. It's really great to have such an opportunity where students, they can witness that this is doable. And so some of that information that she has shared, like the scholarships, I can share with you once we collect all the contact information. And that is after this meeting, or most likely it's going to be the next couple of days. I'll send it out to all the students. So I know students may have some questions you want to ask. And for now, we're going to go through some questions that I wanted to ask Katey to answer. And these are questions that we've asked students in the past when they studied abroad. We wanted to know what was the experience. And of course, we know that COVID-19 has made things a little bit different. Things are not like the way they were, even though the study abroad experience is still there. She's able to learn from a different country. She's still able to have that interaction or even connect with the locals, even though things may not be exactly the same as things were in the past. So I had shared these questions in advance with Katey, so she's familiar with what I'm going to ask. So for students who have questions, probably you can wait until the end of the presentation. We're still doing very well with time, so hopefully we'll be able to capture as much as we can, and then we'll allow time for people to ask questions. So question one. What made you decide to study abroad, especially during worldwide pandemic?
I think for me, I am currently a junior. So when the pandemic hit, I had only done one semester at DH, one full semester and half of it the next semester. And then I was sent home. So a lot of my time was taken away from me. A lot of my college experience was taken away from me. And when the study abroad came up, and I knew it would be like a risk because it was during a pandemic, but I realized, things are different, things are scary, things are like not the same. So I decided, like, why not do all of this? Why not it be scary? Why not it be different? And why not it be not the same in a different country? Like, everything I'm doing back home, I can do it here, but with a different mindset, a different experience. So that's why I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply during a pandemic. And we were warned, like, you guys are going during a pandemic. It can be canceled. It can be this, it can be that. And I was like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I will apply to study abroad.
Thank you. That is a lot of determination. And I'm quite, I mean, these are the kind of student, you have to fight for it. You have to want it to do this, because I've heard in the past where students have said, I did this for me. I did not do it for someone else. I did this study abroad for me. So thank you, Katey, for answering that question. So the next question, how do the courses you are taking abroad fit into your CSUDH academic plan?
So obviously it will be different for every student depending on your major. And for some majors, it is easier to get classes and then harder for other ones. I know for me, when you look at the catalog, it doesn't look like much will fit. You actually have to go into the syllabus and read stuff and be like, oh, that's kind of what I would learn back home, and bring that back to your advisors. And I'm currently taking 2 general ed classes that will transfer back, which would be the exact same classes as if I was taking them at DH. And I'm also taking electives for my major, electives for my minor, some minor courses. It's all about taking the time to look into them and be like, okay, this seems like it would fit, and sometimes you have to fight your case because it might not look like it is, but you just have to tell your advisor, like, here's what the syllabus from back home says, and here's what the syllabus from wherever you're going says. And that's how they fit in.
Thank you. Third question, what resources did you use to fund your study abroad program? I know you already talked about it, and she also shared those resources. Is there anything else you wanted to share in addition to the information you had shared on your PowerPoint?
Scholarships, obviously, but also when you know you want something, you're kind of already working for it. because I knew I wanted to study abroad. So I was working when I was at DH and, saving a little money. It wasn't specifically for studying abroad, but it was like my savings. So now that I'm here, I've been using a little bit of that. And it depends on the family, but I would mention it a lot to your family, like, I'm studying abroad. I want to study abroad. So maybe like Christmas gifts or birthday gifts can be like, oh, this is for your studying abroad experience. I know some of my friends got gifted like for Christmas and their birthdays, like, oh, this is for your studying abroad experience. We're proud of you, stuff like that. But I personally didn't experience that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there is like stuff like that. And once again, please apply to scholarships. I will share the links. I will help you guys through it, just please, because I know a lot of students here didn't apply to them or didn't know of them. Maybe they knew they wanted to apply, but didn't take the time to look into scholarships. And looking into scholarships can be overwhelming because there's so many, but you're like, do I fit into this? Would I get it? Would I do this? So I took my time and I would be more than happy to share the links for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Katey. Next question. What have you experienced? What have you experienced during your stay in South Korea that was least expected? What, sometimes you have all these expectations before you left, and when you get there, things are a little bit different, or maybe it was it is similar to what you had expected. What surprised you most?
Well, the cold. It's so cold. It's so cold in Korea. But depending on the time you come, obviously it's going to be a different season. But besides that, getting serious, I think a lot of students expect to always be with like friends or be in big groups. Like, oh, I'm going to have the best time with friends. And being here in Korea like taught me that a lot of people do things on their own, and that's completely okay. Like learning to be by yourself and learning to enjoy life by yourself is something that really shocked me because I've always been a people's person. But when I came here, I was like, everyone's on their own schedule. I don't have to wait for anyone for me to have fun. So I started doing things on my own. I started taking myself to restaurants. I started taking myself to try new food and doing little stuff like that I wouldn't have done back home. I think back home I would have been scared. Oh my gosh, people are going to think I'm like a loser because I'm by myself. But being here taught me, like nobody really cares. You just have to do your own thing and do what makes you happy and do what you're expecting. Like if you're expecting a good time, then make it a good time. That's kind of what I've learned and shocked me here.
So you learned how to be self-reliant. Yeah, and you've learned how to adapt in a new environment and utilize all those things that which is it's actually a huge step of growth. That's maturity, and also gaining that confidence to be able to do all those things by yourself. Okay, and question number 5. What would you recommend to another student in order to prepare for study abroad experience?
I think a lot of study abroad experiences talk about culture shock. I didn't experience much because I did my research. So my biggest advice would be do your research on the country. It's not like lower level research. You really have to look into it and see what people say about certain things, see the views of the country you're going to, the food. If you're not used to the food back home, try a little bit. You don't have to do the full course meal of different food, but get yourself into the flavors, the textures, the language. I know that some programs require you to know the language while others don't, but I think it would be really good for you to at least know a little bit of Korean before coming here. I knew a little bit and it definitely helped, but now that I'm taking classes, it's like learning much more than I did before. So now my biggest advice is do more than you think. Like study more than you're like, oh, I just need to know the basics, which is great. But if you have the time and you have the resources, start learning Korean on your own. That's my biggest advice. Start learning Korean on your own.
you. And can you clarify on taking classes? Are they all taught in English, or some of them are?
My study abroad classes are taught in English. It's a mixture of fluent English speakers and learning English speakers. So it's like back home. It's like, I think it's like any other teacher. Some will have thicker accents while some will not have it all. And it's all about just doing your work, doing what you need to do, staying on track, and remembering that you are here for school. Remember, you are here for school. Please don't get distracted by everything going on. And just because your friends are going out more than you doesn't mean you have to follow their steps. You know who you are, and you know the type of person you want to be, and you know your worth ethic. They might be faster at doing their work, or they might not be doing their work. Don't be focused on what people are doing. Know who you are and know what works for you. And I am taking a Korean language course. If you go through CSUIP, it's a requirement. Depending on your program that you do, it might not be a requirement, it might be optional, but I know that my program requires it.
Yeah, the CSUIP program does state or list all those requirements, especially when you go to a country where the main language is not English, they may have you take 3 to 6 units of that language that's highly spoken there.
Mm-hmm. I am taking 6 units of Korean language class.
How's that going?
It's good. Like I said before, because I knew a little bit of Hangul, it was much easier. But now that we're getting into like the grammar and all this, you really have to pay attention, and you really have to get used to speaking a language you're not used to. If you're learning Korean, I think it would be great for you to talk to natives. I think that's what that's the things that I've done. And I could be better at it because I do get shy, I do get embarrassed. But my thing is, like, if you want to learn, you have to speak it. You have to get ready to be corrected and make mistakes. Like, you're learning a new language as an adult. And just be ready to learn a language. I think it's hard because we're not used to it, but it's so exciting to when a Korean speaks to me and I'm like, oh, I know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. And I answer in like basic Korean, but they're like, oh, wow, good job. And it's like little things like that encourage you to continue learning the language.
Oh, that's really good. Glad you're having that experience. So question number 6, we have one more question after number 6. What is one thing you would like to share with someone who is considering studying abroad but hasn't made up their mind yet?
So I had already been admitted to Yonsei, and I remember having my doubts. Do I really belong there? Do I really want to go there? Oh my gosh, I'm kind of scared. Oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? I can pull out. I remember having all these thoughts. And now that I'm here, I'm like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, why was I so scared of change when it's something I wanted? And when I look back on it, I'm like, I am so happy to be here. And I'm so happy to have these experiences. And if you're like on the border of like deciding where you want to do, I think you need to take that step forward, because if you don't do it, you're never going to know if you liked it or not. You're never going to know what could have been. I think you need to just do it and apply and go. If you don't like it, if you don't enjoy your study abroad experience, at least you studied abroad and you know what you like and you know what you don't. But you have to take that step forward. I am so happy that I did this. And I remember my family being like, oh, like you can come back if you don't like it. But that was never an option for me. That was like the type of person I am is I'm going to do it because I want to do it. And nothing's going to change my opinion or my thoughts on what I'm doing for myself. Oh, one thing I want to add is family can be like in the back of your head, or like try to tell you like you're going to be so far, you're going to be so far away from us. But remember that like this is your life. Like you have to decide what you want to do for yourself. I know that you want to be with family, and I know that it can be scary being on your own, but these experiences are gonna stay with you forever. no one's ever going to take these away from you if you decide to do this. I've had friends come back and be like, I want to go back again. And I can already see myself deciding like, oh my gosh, I want to go back again. I want to, and just like I'm getting these opportunities to talk about my experiences in Korea, like if you decide to do this, you can encourage other students to do it as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So the final question, has study abroad helped you discover something new about yourself?
Absolutely. I think I've discovered so many things about myself. Like I've mentioned before, the independency, like I learned how to be on my own. I learned like what I enjoy doing, like because there's so much stuff to do here. There's things to do for everyone. If you're a quiet person, there's like studying rooms, there's libraries, there's drawings, there's like little things that aren't available back home or aren't as promoted back home. But it's if you like something, there's so many things for you to do here. And that's what I've learned. I enjoy tasting new food. So I take myself to like food tasting places. I get invited to like events, and sometimes I don't think I'll like it, but because I'm like such an outgoing person, I'm like, I'll try it. I remember I got invited to a kimchi making thing, and I was like, back home me would have never done that. I would have been like, no, like I'll just stay
No.
home. But now that I'm here, I was like, okay, let's do it. And I had so much fun learning how to make kimchi. Like little stuff like that I learned, like you just learn to try new things. You're not in your comfort zone. So if you're not in your comfort zone, might as well do things you wouldn't have done before.
So good to hear that from a student point of view. And are you gonna come and show us how to make kimchi when you come back?
Yeah, I'll have a whole lesson.
Exciting. We can't wait for you to get back here, but we also want you to have that, to continue having that great experience. So now we're gonna go to the chat and see what kind of questions students may have. And so we're gonna start with Anessa.
I think she says, when studying abroad, if it's a year-long program, are you allowed to come back for the holidays? So yes, they have no restrictions on you, but you do have to wait until you have your alien registration card, which is an ARC, because you are now a citizen of Korea for your time being. So you can't travel without that. So it just takes like a couple months. I got it like 2 weeks ago. So that's all you need. And then with COVID restrictions, you do have to quarantine when you come back or when you go. So that's something you have to recall. Like you have to know, like traveling back home will be expensive, but you can do it. Like there's no one stopping you. There's no one telling you, no, you can't go. But I'm personally not going back home for the holidays. I told Racheal I'm deciding to stay here. I want to experience the Christmas here. I want to experience the time off from school, because here you get off December 17th and you don't go back to school. This is going to sound till March. So you have the 2-month break to explore Korea, to explore different areas, to do things that you couldn't do because you were in class. And I think that's a great thing while studying abroad. Like you're doing school, you're doing this and you're doing that, but you do have a break to live, a normal life as a Korean citizen would.
So that was a question from Kalina. Was that the one you answered? Okay.
Yeah.
The other question is, are you taking any Korean language classes, which you kind of addressed? I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
So for depending on the program, so CSUIP makes you take a Korean intensive course. So I have classes every day. I have them from 4 to 6, Monday to Friday, 3 grammar lessons and 2 work studies. Like you're doing work. So it's pretty intensive. I'm learning a lot, but it's fun because since you're learning so much, when you do go out, you're like, oh, I just learned that. Oh, I just learned what cookie is. I just learned what water is. Like I can ask for it now. So it's like, it might be a little bit difficult, but you do learn a lot. And it's really helpful when you're like going to restaurants or just having simple conversations. Because 1 week in, I knew like 60 new vocabulary words that I could read now, or I could be like, oh, I want, like I said, I want water. So I'd go to like the restaurants and I would say, "Mul juseyo," like I want water. So
Okay,
little,
that's good.
yeah, little stuff like that.
Oh, and I see there's another question. Was getting an apartment expensive?
Um, yes and no. I think if you compare it to LA prices or California prices, you're paying less, but it really depends on your budget. I knew I wasn't going to spend a lot, and I knew that I didn't want to spend a lot, so I looked for a cheaper place. There's something called like share houses, which is it's an apartment, but you're like each one has their own room, and you're like you can either live with your friends or you can like have roommates. Um, but there is like affordable places you can find. It's all
Yes.
about like actually doing your research, and I know it's harder that we're since we're back over there, but now that I'm here, I will be moving to a new place, so you can do like small leases. You can do like a 1 month lease, so you at least have a place when you're here,
Yes.
and then look for new places, or a virtual guide, stuff like that, because you are staying here for a while and this will be your new home. I had looked at my place and I thought it was good. It was nice. When I came here, I really liked it. But when you start doing new things and you start having new friends and you start doing all this stuff, and you're like in a certain area, but your home is kind of in this area, you're like, okay, maybe I want to live closer to campus, or maybe I want to live further from campus. It's just little stuff like that, like adulting stuff, you know? But it's not super expensive. It's a it's cheaper. It can be cheaper than on the dorms though.
Okay. Oh, sounds good. And then what about commuting? Adding to that question, what's the distance? How do you commute to the campus?
The campus is about 20 minutes walking. It's like 10 minutes on the bus. And like I said before, walking culture in Korea is huge. So you walk everywhere. But the buses, a lot of people say that the buses are super hard to navigate, but there's like resources for us. There's something called Naver, which is the English version of like their maps. So that gives you all the details for the maps. But remember that Korea is crowded, so you do have to get ready to be in a bus like this. And then when it's your stop, move your way into it. And at first it was like scary. And we were like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so rude, like pushing through it. But no, like people don't mind. Like they know you have to get off to your stop. And like, don't be afraid to be looking at your phone the whole way if that makes it easier for you, like navigating your way. Like, the buses are relatively cheap and they go from everywhere. You can usually go from the end of Korea to the other side of Korea with a couple buses that all just kind of go all the way.
Pretty
There's
cool.
subways,
Mhm.
trains.
Okay.
Those are a little bit more confusing, but you kind of just get the hang of it. And if you get lost, well, you get lost and you just find your way back.
You get to learn more while you're still
Yeah.
finding your way back. That's really awesome. Okay. And so it seems like we don't have any more questions on the chat, but please feel free to ask her any questions that you may have. So feel free to ask questions. We have a question here. Why did you pick South Korea to study abroad? That's from Sarai.
Why did I think I've always known I wanted to study abroad. When I was younger, I think it was England or Europe, I guess. Because that's all I had ever been exposed to like the programs. When I heard of studying abroad, the only programs were mentioned or like area was like England. So in my head, I was like, okay, so England. But then as I grew older, I was like, wait, there's so many places I can actually study abroad. And I think it was in 2016 when I got exposed to the Korean culture. It's very different from mine, very different and very similar at the same time. And I moved to LA, so that was already different for me. I'm from a small town in California called Wasco or Bakersfield. So moving to a bigger city, I was like, okay, this is fun. And then when the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what, I want to study abroad. And I was looking at the options, and Europe was good, other places were good, but then I saw Korea, and I was like, this is so different. It's gonna be so difficult for me, and it's gonna be so hard. But I like challenges, and I was like, all right, learning another language, let's do it. And my family was like scared because I don't know the language and they don't know much about Korean culture. And when I was like in the midst of like studying abroad, I remember I'm like, I'm gonna take you guys to a restaurant because I'm gonna live there. And it was such a nice thing to immerse my Mexican family into the Korean culture. And now that I'm here, I'm like absorbing everything. I'm like, I can't wait to show this to my family. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do that. And I think that's why I chose to study abroad in South Korea, because I knew that it's nothing of what I've experienced before. It's nothing close to my culture. And I'm just gonna have so much to bring back. So it was more of like, what can I do? What can I learn for myself? But what can I do for the people around me as well? Like, I'm going to teach so much to the younger ones about a culture they would have never been exposed to.
Thank you. Any other question? Like we don't have any more, but one of the things that just came across, Nadia would like you to share your contact information. Yeah, I think Katie is putting in her contact information. And while she's doing that, one of the questions that crossed my mind is the application process. And so I want to see if Katie can share a little bit of how she went about applying for CSUIP. And because I know a lot of students, they always ask, what am I required to do in order to apply? What do I need to have? And so, and I know with CSUIP program, everything is very well detailed and self-explanatory. And of course, we have to make sure that we guide you. I'm the CSUIP coordinator for CSUDH. So I have to work with the students and to make sure that they are clear on everything that's required for that particular program, or even helping them find courses. So Katie, how was the application process?
So everything is fairly simple. They have like sections for every little thing, and they make you check it off. So you can check off stuff before other stuff. You can check off stuff, or what you need to get. I know they needed a transcript. I know they say 3 essays, but it's more of like 3 paragraphs, because they do give you a limit on how much you can actually talk. So the limit can either be really good or really bad. It's like, okay, so you have to limit yourself to what I'm going to say. So you have to you have to point out the main points. But then the problem is, what main points am I going to focus on? So I think, especially if you want to study abroad in South Korea, to remember it's so competitive. It's super competitive, but that shouldn't discourage you. I remember Racheal and other counselors were telling us how competitive it was. And I don't think it was meant to be discouraging, but I think some students did feel discouraged. But honestly, for me, it was like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I can either do my hardest and submit my application and be confident with my work, or be scared and not submit it. So I decided to just put my step forward and do my best on my essays. And like I said, since it's super competitive, do not be generic. Don't be scared to get really into your heart and really deep about why you want to study abroad. If you feel like you have a connection, say it. But they want to know why you're different from other students or why they should choose you. Like, one thing I want to tell you guys is do not mention like, oh, I enjoy K-pop or oh, I enjoy K-dramas. Please do not mention that. They don't want to know. They already know. They know you know. They know they like that you like those things. But mention like how it would benefit you, like how Korea or why Korea is meant for you. That's something that they really want to know. And everyone has different answers and everyone has different reasonings, but just be true to yourself and get it from your heart. That's what I did. I took my reasonings from my heart, and I think that's why I'm here. You know, I wasn't like trying to be better than anyone else. It was more of like, I'm being true and I'm saying why I really want to be there. And then they do require 2 letters of recommendation. And I think for that, a lot of people are scared to ask for letters of recommendation, but it doesn't have to be a professor that's known you for a long time, just a professor that knows you well enough to write you a good letter, or someone you talk to a lot, like a professor you talk to a lot that can show your greatest features, like show your greatest what's so good about you, you know. But one thing, like, I think you really need to focus on the writing proportion. For me, I started off with one thing, and then as I was like, I would like finish, and then I'd be like, no, let me go back. And I would say start as early as you can, because the first draft is never going to be like what you submit. It's just a starting point. So I gave myself lots of ideas, and then I would cut that one out, put it back in, cut it out. And I think when writing for stuff like this, you have to let other people read it. You have to let other people criticize and change things, like, oh, like that doesn't sound as great, or what do you mean here? Because sometimes what sounds good to you doesn't sound good to other people, or doesn't make sense, because what you're reading, you've already formulated in your head that this sounds good. But when someone else reads it, they're like, oh, what are you trying to say? So like allow people to do that to you, like for you, like to like give you advice and tell you like, oh, like that doesn't really make sense, because that's how they're going to be reading it. Like many people will be reading your stuff and deciding like, this is a great candidate, this isn't, like just preparing a lot. And it's not a lot of work. It's really not. It's only 3 paragraphs, but you want them to be the best 3 paragraphs you're going to write.
Yeah, so yeah, I know Katie is talking about the questionnaires for the essay. So they usually give you like prompts, like they want to know, why did you choose this program? How have you prepared yourself to study abroad? And what are you expecting to get out of study abroad? And I believe it's between 4 to 7 sentences, and probably can add another one depending on the space. So like Katie said, you have to make sure that you're giving the proper amount of information. And so you have to choose the best. And so we encourage students to share with us. Of course, you have to make sure that you have written your essay, that we can kind of read it with you and see, have you answered the prompts correctly? And also, of course, you may want to reach out to the writing center, or even your professor if they're willing to help you with the essays. And because you want to make yourself that you're putting your best out there. And the other part that she mentioned is about the faculty recommendation. So some programs, if there is no language requirement, you only be required to submit one faculty recommendation, and that has to come from your major, and the other recommendation will have to come from the Csuip coordinator, which would be me. And so it's not like an actual recommendation letter. They're kind of questionnaires where they want to know your performance. And so, like Katie said, you want to make sure that you find a professor, talk to them first to make sure that they agree, and that you can explain to them what they're doing. And one of the things about the CSUIP program, when you select a particular professor to provide you the recommendation letter, then there's a letter. There's going to be a cover letter coming from CSUIP explaining to them, this is what we are asking you to do for this particular student. Anything else you'd like to address, Katey?
Nothing like super like for academic wise, but I know Korea has like really weird food. And I just wanted to mention that like they have a corn ice cream.
Wow.
Corn, like it's like literally in a corn shell, and it's like vanilla ice cream with like corn in it, and it's so good, but it's so weird. Like when I send it to my family, they're like, "What are you eating?" Or there's like corn lattes, like really weird things that I take pictures of, and I'm like, "What is Korea thinking?" So that's like a little funny thing that that kind of shocked me. I was like walking by a cafe and I was like, a corn latte? What are they on?
Oh,
But
that's really exciting.
yeah, it's the corn ice cream that was really good.
Yeah, you're making us hungry here. I know it's late in the afternoon in California, and I know in South Korea it's way early in the morning, right?
Yeah, it's a 9:53 in the morning. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing now, if you do get to Korea, one thing my piece of advice is please do not get a phone line abroad, like I mean from back home, like T-Mobile or Verizon. Like they offer plans, but please do not get them. Like they are so overpriced. Um, when you can just get a SIM card here, if your phone is unlocked, if your phone's fully paid, or if you discuss with your provider, you can get a SIM card that works the exact same way. And it's probably much easier when applying for like the ARC, when doing like stuff on the apps, you need a Korean number, and they're super cheap. They're like $20 for a month. And if you do like longer plans, they're like so much cheaper, unlimited data. Like that's why a lot of my friends did get plans from back home and they regret it now. Like, please do not do that. They are so overpriced when you can just get one from here, get a plan from here.
Hear that? I think everybody is listening, but we are so happy and we feel honored to have you join us and share this incredible and it's very informative uh, resources that you have gone through yourself, which is really great for students to hear from another student, that's first-hand experience. So we really want to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking your time, waking up super early to join us here in California. And I know we can't wait for you to come back and also hold another info session. I'm sure I'm going to make sure that I schedule you to do one. I know Katey has also offered in the past to help with reaching out to students. She's very enthusiastic about studying abroad, and especially from what it has done for her and all these great things that she sees it can do to other students. So for students, take the first step. And I know it's not easy, as Katey has said in her own words, which I really love that quote. She said, if I'm doing things back home during pandemic, the way the situation is, why can't I go to another country and do it there? Why not? Which is really exciting to hear such words. So we want to say thank you so much, Katey, for joining us, and we'll be keeping in touch. And we really appreciate for taking your time out to come and help us here, encourage students, and we're going to continue encouraging students to consider studying abroad.
Yeah, I just want to say to the students, please reach out to me. I absolutely love talking like personally and giving any advice I can give. I think the reason I'm so enthusiastic and the reason I want to help everyone is because when I was doing my studying abroad experience, Racheal did amazing by having people that had studied abroad before. But I think nothing helped as much because they had studied abroad a couple years ago. And now that I'm here, I want to be that person for other people that you can ask questions to, that you don't have to be embarrassed to or scared to be like, maybe she doesn't know. Because if I don't know, I can figure it out. If I don't know now, I can do my research while I'm here because I'm here. Like if you have questions on certain things, I can um, answer them to the best of my abilities and hopefully ease your anxieties, because I know that I had so many questions and I was so scared, but there was nobody at the moment that had studied abroad that could help me. So that's the person I want to be for you guys. So please reach out and don't be afraid. Like, no question is silly. You can ask me about like dealing with homesickness, or what I do when I'm sad, or how do I deal with this. Like, I don't mind answering questions. So please reach out. I'm here and I'm usually on my phone. So
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So reach out to Katey. She's offering to help if you have any questions. And if you need more information about the programs, reach out to our office, and I'll leave my contact information here. I think I had not done so. That's my email address. And also I see Anessa has put the appointment link. So if you'd like to make an appointment to discuss more about your study abroad plans, feel free to get online, get to our website and make an appointment. It's usually like about 30 minutes. And if we need more, we can expand if there's time. But I've always encouraged students to reach out to me, even if those hours you find on the appointment link or appointment page are not what you are looking for. You can just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm available on Thursday at 11 o'clock. Can you at least meet with me? So I don't want to say so much, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Katey. We really appreciate. And I want to also give a vote of thanks to the people who are working with me in the background. We have Anissa, who is our who is a specialist in media, and please forgive me if I did not mention your proper title. And also we have Omon Raka, who is the Visa and Immigration Coordinator, and we all work under College of Extended International Education. So thank you so much, and have a great day, Katey. And for the rest of Californians or wherever you are, have a great evening.
yeah, enjoy the rest of your night.